Okay, let us dive straight on in. So welcome to today's weekly live show. I'm really excited to be with you here. Obviously weren't here last week because I was holidaying, but excited to be here today. If you are new in the group, my name is Laura Green. I am a yoga teacher, a teacher trainer, a business mentor, and just all-round lover of yoga teachers. And today, in my world of loving and adoring chatting with yoga teachers, I am chatting with a dear friend of mine, but also a colleague, Lauren Gray. Lauren and I work together a lot. So Lauren co-teaches on my teacher training. She teaches about mythology, meditation, mental health, the beauty of Shavasana. Lauren and I run retreats together, and Lauren and I are now going to be doing a residential advanced teacher training together. It is 4 days, jam-packed, because a lot of us are time short, and I know finances aren't abundant at the moment, so we're cramming this into 4 days in an amazing place in Devon to fill you up with amazing yoga, but also to give you so much new training and inspiration. And one of the topics we're going to be covering is mythology, mudras, and meditation. So we thought we would bring you a little snippet of that today and share this training on how to use mudras to inspire your sequencing. And no doubt we're going to go a little bit into the elements, and we will cover the subtle body and elements in the advanced teacher training. And we're going to go into mythology just a little bit, because we will also be covering the power of mythology in this residential 4-day advanced teacher training. But without further ado, I'm going to let the fabulous Lauren, who I would just like to say is the biggest brain I have ever met. And I've met a lot of people, and this is the most intelligent, fascinating human being I have the pleasure of talking to. But aside from that little heap of pressure, Lauren, my lovely, big, beautiful, intelligent brain and joyful human being, please introduce yourself.
I don't feel like I have to. And also I'm very sleepy, so I'm very emotional.
Poor Lauren has been poorly this week.
I have. I'm feeling back to normal though, which is good. Yeah, I'm Lauren. I am a massive nerd, and something I don't think I ever really understood until I got out of kind of real structured education, being able to learn the things that I wanted to learn in a way that I wanted to learn them. And most of the time, the way I want to learn things is in conversation. So that's, I think, why Laura and I have such a fantastic friendship and working relationship, because we just want to talk about stuff all the time. So I really value knowledge and the continued development of that, and yoga is the job that allows me to do that. So I'm forever grateful.
That is a side note. That is so true, isn't it? That I remember when I gave up my full-time job in recruitment to be a yoga teacher, and I remember my boss saying, I don't think being a yoga teacher is going to intellectually stimulate you. Mm-hmm. And it intellectually stimulates me every single day. And I've been practicing for 22 years, and I still feel like I know this much out of this much. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about where we can find inspiration for sequencing. I've been in this group for a really, really long time, and I find that there are comments every now and again, teachers going, no inspiration, what the hell can I teach this week? And I think it's a really common thing. I get it all the time. I actually find that my inspiration wanes seasonally. So I'm actually coming into the time where my inspiration is at its most abundant. So I tend to write down lots of things that have inspired me, so that when I am feeling a lack in that, I can go, where's that list? Where did I put it? Where's my inspiration list? And I can pick it up again. So it's finding inspiration with our hands, with mudra. And I just wanted to say very, very quickly, I know when I teach this, I always feel quite conscious, because I really make an effort to try and say mudra, because the anglicized way that we want to say this is mudra. which I think you'll agree loses some magic in the word. The whole point of the Sanskrit language is to capture the magic of it. So mudra is the way that I say this, and for some people it's not as easy. We do have to put in more effort to say the word in that way, but I think that makes it all better.
I remember when I was doing my Sanskrit course with Julie Hemmings, and it really started to notice how anglicized my pronunciation of Sanskrit was. And I remember connecting with you and also a lot with our friend Sunita about my pronunciation. And mudra, I really struggled with, because it can sound to people like a rolling of the tongue or a rolling of the R, and I actually can't do that. But it is very quickly the tongue, it's a dental in the D and the R, the tongue coming to the roof of your mouth. Yeah. So yeah, so both yourself and Sunita would just repeat words back to me and how they should sound. And I'm like, I can hear the difference, but I can't make my mouth do that. And I really had to learn, where do I move my tongue? So yeah, it is that tongue going right to the back of the teeth of a mudra. And I'm not rolling my tongue because I can't. You're just hearing that tongue moving quickly off the back of my teeth. And I just taught a class with the word in loads until I could say it.
Yeah, exactly. And mudra and mudra sound different. You know, if I rock, because I can roll my R's, mainly because my dad just used to sing the Tigger song to me when I was little, and I wanted to learn how to go grrr. But mudra and mudra sound different. You know, they have different energy. So yeah, that's
so from that basic of pronunciation of mudra. Yeah. If you had never heard the word mudra, what does it mean in the most basic sense?
Gesture of the hand, a hand gesture is basically what it means, and it is simply a way of channeling feeling through our fingertips. So asana for fingers, basically. And in the same way that we can feel a grounded, expansive, uplifting sensation within the body in Utthita Trikonasana, we can feel a connected, spacious, light energy in our hands when we practice something like Hakini Mudra. So it's a way of channeling, a way of deepening our communication with our body.
And I think that's what really nice then, you said that it's a hand gesture. And obviously we don't have mudras in England. You know, we have learned them from yoga, from our teaching, but I gesture a lot when I talk, and a lot of it is mindless or habits learned. But do you think there's any connection from just gesture that we can come into mudra with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we put so much on the words that we're going to speak, and oftentimes we can mask facial expressions because we don't want people to know what we're feeling. But it's very rare that I see people trying to mask their hand gestures. So you can tell if someone's nervous because they're fidgeting, banging, wriggling, chewing, whatever. And you can tell if someone's excited.
Angry too.
And angry. I've been in your classes where you've been talking about something that you're immensely passionate about, and your arms are flinging around all over the place because you're just so excited and you can't contain that. And your hands, as well as your facial expression, the tone of voice, everything, but it all comes together. And I know guiding meditations, we've both said this, if we're guiding meditation or shavasana, everyone has their eyes closed, but we are moving our hands. We're not doing this for a performative reason. We're doing it because we're channeling this sensation that we wish to emanate out from us to everyone in our sphere of energy in that moment.
So then if we're using our hands subconsciously as a representation of our energy, so if we're nervous, maybe they're here, or we're passionate, they're wildly gesticulating, and that is expressing our energy. Do you think that the mudras work in the reverse way, that I can change my energy by consciously bringing my hands into specific shapes.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I think because, as you rightly said, a lot of our hand gestures tend to be mindless. So if we're just flinging them around all over the place, then surely our mind could go in that same way. Whereas if we are consciously, like, our hands are how we connect to the world, really, aren't they? As well as our eyes, there are two main ways of connecting with everything around us. So if we were to draw that in and simply just place our hands on ourselves, that's an immediate shift. Close your eyes as well, and that is an immediate shift, because you're going, no, wait a minute, just tone and breathe. And not only do you feel the movement of your breath, but you become more consciously aware of it. When you're like, oh, I am magnificent, I am amazing, oh, okay, nice.
Or just, I am here. You know, being in a conversation with you, my energy prior to that moment was very forwards and in, whereas as soon as I had the up, no, I'm here, I'm back in my body, and I can be here and in dialogue with you. And in the split of a second, the hands changed that. So coming on from just how we mindfully use the hands, how did you come into your knowledge of mudra?
Very late, actually. It's probably the most recent thing. I remember on my first teacher training doing an afternoon workshop on mudra, but realistically it's been the last couple of years, I think, and I've been teaching for 9 years and practicing for half my life. So it's late. It's late today. But I found that it's almost opened up a whole other door of yoga, a whole other way of looking at it. And I do love bringing in, as many of the elements of yoga as possible. But yeah, I got gifted a really beautiful book, which you still have, by the way.
Which I stole from you. Yes.
Which is actually now out of print.
Yes, we would share that book, and I probably will share that book, but it's out of print, and if you can find it anywhere, it's about between £200 to £400.
So expensive. I feel like I'll just take pictures every now and again and put them in the group, because they'll just be easier. But I got gifted this book, and I felt like I'd already dabbled a bit, and then my friend gifted me this book, and I was like, okay, I need to focus more on this. This has come my way. I would not have bought this, so let's delve. And yeah, through that really just begun to incorporate it more. And I now do meditation I'm not going to say every day, most days, with a different mudra, and see where that takes me through the day. Yeah.
And I think when I was first introduced to, coincidentally, the book is right here. I thought it was upstairs. It must have migrated itself downstairs.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is the book we both love. And just whilst I'm here,
it's
the pictures in it. A picture of Shiva, the pictures in it, just amazing. But I think why I didn't resonate with mudras originally was a lot of the education I had on them was to use them in isolation. Not necessarily with meditation, not necessarily with asana, not even necessarily with pranayama, unless it was part of the pranayama. But it was almost in a lot of the books, just hold this mudra and it will have this effect on your energy. And things don't work like that for me. They only affect my energy if I'm super present, mindful, and intentional with it. So it wasn't until I started using mudras in meditation and in my classes, in asana, that I really started to get them. Going back on the basics of mudra, you kind of blew my mind when you taught about the different fingers being connected with different elements. I'd known that, I'd read it, but it was only when you taught it, I was like, I get it. So please, could you teach us how each finger is associated with one of the great Mahabhutas, the great elements, and how we remember that?
I think that's what I love about it. And when I learned it, I was like, oh, there's the connection I've been waiting for. Mudra, Mahabhuta. That's what I was waiting for. Some connection. And also in a way the Vayus, but we can get into that. So your thumb is fire. And this element I always describe with this mudra, because it's like the flickering flame on a strong foundation.
And then we'll put that with Kapalabhati.
Exactly. So it makes sense. And also, if you were to just sort of like wiggle your thumb around, it's very free. It's very elevated, but it's still very attached. You know, it's like a single flickering flame from a strong, smoldering foundation of coal. You know, it feels good. And you can really put your energy into it, and it feels quite warm right around the base of your thumb. It can feel quite light and bright, like the flickering end as you stretch it, or you can just let it relax there. So it's quite nice. You then have your index finger, which is air. And again, this one moves around independently quite easily because it's very free, it's very flowy, it's very light. Then we have space, which is your middle finger. And if I were to turn this the other way, I'd be very rudely asking you to give me some space. That's how I tend to remember that one. But it's also your tallest finger, usually. Not everyone, but it's also your tallest finger. So it is the
reaching up into the space.
Exactly. Then try and detach your ring finger on its own.
It's really hard.
Really hard. So that is your earth finger. And I feel like I'm going to get this wrong, but I feel like in Japanese mythology, this is why the ring finger is the ring finger for wedding, because it bonds you to someone. And don't quote me on that. There is a mythology where that does come from. I cannot remember the origin of it. And then your final one is water. Your pinky is water. It's this idea of just free flowing. So if we were to just point out the pinky fingers and relax them down onto our lap or our knees, there's just this wonderful, effortless flow that comes from the heart all the way down.
Yeah, it's coming from the heart all the way down like a waterfall.
Yeah, exactly. It's so lovely. So lovely. So yeah, they're the Mahabhutas, the great elements represented in the hands, and very, very simply a good way to start exploring without going, oh, I need a mudra to practice. Just go, okay, so we've got fire and we've got space. So obviously fire needs space to grow. So we could join the thumb and the middle finger together. The other three fingers extend out fairly comfortably on their own. So we could sit with that mudra, or we could interweave it into a practice with asana, and we could bring the points of the fingertips together, and we could be in Virabhadrasana and using this, lifting it up to the sky, maybe bringing it into the heart, extending it out, and have this real kind of pointed lift and spaciousness with what we were doing, rather than just
and you think like how many times have we taught and how many times have our students done Virabhadrasana 1, Virabhadrasana 2, the warriors? And actually I remember when I think we were teaching mental health and teacher training and brought the hands on the hips, and it completely changed and felt grounded, rooted, powerful. Or even from that Virabhadrasana 2 to turn the arms up and bend the elbows, it feels more feminine. But then to be able to layer in the elements with that of consciously thinking, okay, I wish to feel earth and grounded in this today. So maybe I could focus on connecting those middle fingers or connecting with the thumb. That's a beautiful way. Anything else, particularly in the taking those elements of the fingers, what other than this being fire, what other mudras do you particularly like that work with those elements?
So it doesn't always go. So obviously our pinkies are water, which is my favorite element. I'm severely lacking in it in my astrological birth chart, which is why I think I'm obsessed with it. But one of my favorites is the Shank mudra, which is the conch shell mudra. So you want to hold your, am I going to be mirrored? I am, aren't I? So you want to hold your left thumb in your right hand, literally hold it, and then this thumb here and the opposite middle finger are going to meet together. Hang on, why did I wear this top? That was silly of me. So you're going to hold your thumb and then bring the middle tip and the thumb tip together, and it looks like a conch shell that you would find on the beach. Now obviously you've got this severe wrap around the thumb, which in my mind is subduing the fire, the flame. It's cloaking it slightly. You do also have one of your pinkies which is fairly tangled, which might feel a little bit tight, but this one is very free, so you can just sort of rest here and take some breaths. I always feel really drawn to the flow of the breath when I'm coming into this mudra.
The beautiful mudra.
But if you feel held, and I think where my love of swimming and the ocean, you know, I feel very held by water. And obviously it's living on an island. we are held by water, you know, the whole world is held by water. If you go down deep enough, you will find water around any land. So it's a nice one to connect to that flow, but it's kind of a still flow. It's not this, you know, big, you know, undulating movement. It's a calmness. It's a calmness. It's a grounded calmness that comes with that. And I use that a hell of a lot in my personal practice, and I interweave it fairly regularly in my teaching practice as well.
Do you have any other favorite mudras? I know the one you predominantly taught me, which was this one. You taught me this one.
Yeah, so interlacing bringing the backs of the palms together with cross wrists, and interlacing the pinkies, the rings, the middle fingers, and then connecting the index and thumbs together. I always think of these as like a real awesome pair of goggles. But this is called Abhaya Hridraya, tongue twister. But it means yeah. Someone once said it sounds a little bit like I'll buy a hairdryer. But it's the Fearless Heart Seal. I've actually seen lots of amazing teachers using it this week, because you tend to hold it at your heart center, and it's kind of like this, it feels like a Fort Knox style mudra. It's really interlocked, it's really connected, it's really binding, and then to place it in front of your heart is this kind of, I know myself, I know my heart, I'm looking up for myself, you know, this real sense of strong care for yourself and for your emotional being.
I sometimes feel that one quite differently. At the heart, I feel the two circles of space, and I imagine one of them is a portal through which I'm letting love flow out, and the other one's a portal through which I'm letting love flow in.
She says I'm smart. Whatever.
You know, it's like giving and receiving. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, because love is nothing if it's not shared.
Plus that protection, that I've got this element. So say I'm having one of those weeks where I'm drawing a blank on what to teach. I actually had that this week, having just come back from Taiwan. I was so oversaturated that I didn't have anything ready to share. I needed to percolate. And so I'm like, okay, I need a muse. I need an inspiration. Lauren and Laura taught me this mudra, which on the side of it is also a damn good finger stretch. And we need that. Typing on the phones, people need arthritis prevention. It's opening up through the backs of the finger joints. Like, there's some real physical benefits to this. How could I go, right, I've got this, I'm going to work with this next week. How could I design a lesson plan with this being my muse?
Fantastic. I really feel, because it's heart, obviously we've just come out of Valentine's week as well, which I'm sure was a big inspiration for many people, but again, because it's heart, it could be anything. It could be protection of this, and you could love yourself and enrapture yourself in folding movements and focus on everything folding inwards and turning inwards, because that's a feeling that you get from this mudra. Or again, you could find these two circles of giving and receiving, and you could have almost like an energetic push pull give receive kind of flow with your movement aspect. So everything could have a moment where you lean into it a little bit more and lean away from it, and just feel that kind of giving receiving pulsation. That
would be lovely in a worry too. We did that in my Valentine's couples workshop, a pulling in and a pulling back. Beautiful. And an arm pulsing. Would it be okay, obviously, to take this out of a seat and in meditation and put it into an asana? Could I hold this at my heart in Vrksasana, tree pose? Could I hold this in Virabhadrasana, one warrior one?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've used this in Warrior 2. I've used this in tree pose. I've used this in numerous poses. I think it's just important to teach it first, because certainly if you were going to go into Vrksasana and then say, oh, and then just interlace.
Yes. I can't take that instruction whilst I'm bouncing on one leg.
Sure. And I would also say teach the grounded variation first, like just rest your foot against the inside of the other one, get the mudra, and then maybe lift into a higher variation of tree pose if you wanted to with the leg.
And I guess probably saying that on the layered teaching of the asana, there's probably is a space for layered teaching of this. You know, if I did have really bad arthritis in my fingers, but my understanding was intention was there, maybe I could just cross the wrist and hold the 2 circles.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it actually feels, it works your metacarpals more.
Yeah,
you can really feel that down the back of your hand. Like, that is a really nice way of doing that. And it's, you know, certainly if you're looking to try and find more lift in a pose like Vrksasana, you're looking to feel that would give you that same kind of sensation. So yeah, having that playful, you know, more broad, you know, krama way of looking at a pose, you know, building, taking away a layer, adding a layer, whatever you want to do, I think is really good. I actually taught this. One of my best friends in the whole world was born without a left hand. And I remember I was like, oh, I'm going to teach that. It was when I first learned the mudra a few years ago. So I want to teach that. And then I forgot that she was in the class. And I actually have to say, I do forget that she doesn't have a left hand. I do genuinely forget. Known her since we were like 12. And I was like, oh, okay. Luckily, she's one of my best friends. I just went and I sat directly behind her and I just gave her my left hand. And I was like, right, we need to, you know, like interlace, and then loop those ons together. And she said it was really weird having that extra hand, because whenever we've done mudras, there's been separate hands, and she's just done it with the right
one.
Yeah. But she said she just felt all of this extra stuff happening in the left side of her body because I'd given her the left hand.
Wow, really what a confident thing to do as well. So we talk about, you know, we could think about what does this feel like, and okay, so that's a wrap, so maybe that becomes a wrap, and, you know, teaching the mudra at the beginning of a class, then maybe bringing it back in 2 to 3 poses, and then maybe revisiting it as a meditation at the end, so it becomes like a motif through it. And I know some yoga poses, their namesake have a mudra as well, like Garudasana, eagle. I think this is the Garudasana mudra. So you could sort of have that whole class on eagle, but starting with the mudra, then bringing the mudra, then bringing that into the wings as well. What about mythology? Because obviously you said there, Garudasana. You know, after Garuda, the great eagle, has the namesake of a yoga pose, has the namesake of a mudra. You and I both adore Ganesha, and Ganesha has at least 2 mudras. There's this mudra, and then there's a really complicated one Sunita teaches that I can't remember right now, which is like the I can't remember. Oh, Sunita, you're gonna get cross with me. I
always end up doing
the tusks. Yeah, it's like the tusks. So how do you think there's a place for laying in mythology as well as mudra?
I mean, you're asking the mythology enthusiast. Yes, always. You're a storyteller, I'm a storyteller. I love being able to tell people stories, and I think that as we get older, we lose that a little bit. We lose that bedtime story time. I really like it. So yes, if I'm teaching a class and I'm thinking, oh, I'm really inspired by Ganesha at the moment, so I'm going to incorporate his mudra, I'm going to do a whole class, and then I'm going to talk about him for Shavasana, and I'll basically tell my students a story like I would a child at bedtime.
Yeah.
I think it's a really great way to bring all of that in, whether it is Ganesha, whether it's Kali, whether it's Garuda, you know, whatever the inspiration is, it gives you the opportunity as a teacher to keep learning about something to do with yoga, a subject that we love, and then it gives you the opportunity to share that for people. And I just think it brings a whole other element to teaching.
Mm. And I think what you said about learning there is really interesting, because I think we get stuck in this trap as yoga teachers of when do we feel like we know enough about something to share something? Whereas one of the most powerful ways I learn is by teaching. So I remember taking anatomy. I'm not very good at, I wasn't very good at anatomy, and learning it on my teacher training, it went in one ear and out the other. But it was then when I was like, okay, I'm going to teach myself the anatomy of the shoulder, and then I'm going to make this week's yoga class on the shoulder. That cements my learning. So I think that process is just being really honest with your students, saying, I am looking at learning more about the mythology behind some of the yoga poses.
Yes.
As I'm learning, I'm going to be sharing what I'm learning with you, and we can learn together. And that really helps with that imposter syndrome of not going, I don't know everything about Ganesha, and I don't think anybody could know everything about the wonders of mythology. But if we're honest and going, I'm not an expert, I'm learning, and together we're sharing that adventure.
And in the same way that when two people do this same hand gesture, you could just fold your fingers in together and seal it as if you're holding a precious treasure, or you can pull and feel your back awaken, your shoulders really, really begin to wake up. So in the same way that two people can feel the same thing, the same movement really differently, we can experience stories very differently. They can tell us different things. And I think that's one of the things that works, that I found through interweaving more mythology into my teaching, is that it resonates with people differently. You know, people can go from a class from Ganesha and think, oh, there are obstacles in my way, but they're not just going to move. I need to take action. Or they can say, oh, I need to find a different way of potentially navigating that path, you know? And it can just sit differently with different people, in the same way that a feeling in your hands can be very different.
Yeah, so I definitely say, as you said, the mudras can be felt differently, is thinking as a teacher, why are you bringing this mudra in? What does it feel like in your body? Like I'm showing here Hakini mudra, because Lauren was saying how she likes to keep the fingers really light here and feel the space and expansion. And how would that lightness and space and expansion translate for you into an asana? How would you bring this into this feeling into an asana?
It probably wouldn't be a single pose that would inspire me from this. It would be a whole class, and it would be movement that is light and uplifting and spacious. So every movement I did, I would shift it slightly, and I would make it more open, and I would do everything with an inhale, as if air was literally picking me up off the ground. And it would manifest as a very light, very flowy, very, for want of a better phrase, airy fairy yoga class. You know, it would have that quality to it. But I know you teach this with pressure.
Yeah, so I teach, and it was funny because I was teaching this one this week, but I say actively elbows wide, press all the fingertips together, and the muscles in my back just go badonk. And it was about leaning into our strength, leaning into our back body. And all of the yoga poses then became like, imagine you're a tortoise shell, inhabit your back body. And it was just this mudra makes you inhabit your back body. But even as you said your way about feeling the spaciousness here, my brain took that into, I could imagine like Trikonasana, so triangle, and rather than focusing on where the points meet, where my hand is on my leg, where my feet is on the floor, focusing on the space. So where's the triangle of space between my legs? Where's the triangle of space between my arm and the shoulder? Where's the space between my ear and the neck? Like I've got all this deliberate space between every finger here? Where's the deliberate space between every limb?
Yeah. Yeah, rather than the nuts and bolts and the alignment and the nitty
Yeah.
gritty, what quality is there between all of that?
And what shapes are you making? Where are you making the shape of space? But what really blew my mind is we're both showing Hakini Mudra like this. And then when you gave me this book that I'm slowly refusing to give back, it has Hakini Mudra in here. I'm not going to find it flipping right now, but yeah, it's down and it talks about the goddess Hakini. And to me, it's very fire, very yang, very surya, very sun, very masculine energy. And as soon as I just flip the fingers down, the energy is totally different.
Yeah. I do it upside down, but it's largely a default in meditation. I very rarely do it in asana like that. I would normally just sit with it in my lap, just sort of right in front of the lowest part of my belly. That is so comfortable to me. And I know our good mutual friend Lisa does exactly the same thing. In fact, in meditation, she's very seldom comfortable in any other hand position. That is her chosen hand position. Yeah, and again, just a simple whoop, can change so much, can do so much. And I could imagine in goddess pose itself incorporating that again at the depths of your low belly could feel really quite nice. I'm gonna have to try.
Yeah, yes, and then you can see Lauren going, right, I'm going to have to try that. You know, it's probably going to ease into Lauren's class next week. So if you are looking at what you might be sequencing next week, let's just recap on a couple of mudras to maybe inspire your mind. So I never use this one that Lauren teaches. I always forget it. It's beautiful. So it was left thumb.
Hold it.
Yeah.
And then thumb and the opposite middle finger together.
Yeah, and this is the conch.
Yeah, called Shank.
Shank. Is that a Sanskrit word, Shank?
Yeah, Shank. SHANKH, I believe.
Shank. Yeah. So do a little reading. If this one's resonating with you, always read, always research, always dive deeper, but also always sit with. Okay, it's one thing to read. What does Shank Mudra mean? What is the energy of it? Then go and sit with it. How does this feel to me? What is the energy of this to me? So we always want the wisdom of scholars, books, reading, but we must always marry that with the wisdom of our own felt experience. So we have Shank Mudra. Then we showed you, give me the pronunciation again.
Oh, Abhaya.
Abhaya.
Hridraya.
Hridraya. Okay, so that was back to the hands together, interlace little fourth finger, middle finger, thumb, and index finger.
Yeah.
Okay. So sit with that. You know, Lauren spoke about how it has this power of the heart space, this holding yourself. I spoke about how I like the two circles, one for flowing love out, one for love in. You sit that with that. What inspiration comes to you? Then we had Hakini Mudra, pressing all of the fingertips together. Maybe you're feeling this light, expansive space. Maybe you're feeling this power of the back body. What do you crave? What do you need? If you wanted to layer in one more mudra, what would that be?
On the spot. Blanking.
All right, let's let fate decide.
That's much
better. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Oh, Trimurti Mudra, gesture of Trinity for menopause and all life transitions. Placed at the center of my being, I embrace life's transitions as opportunities. So that was thumbs together, fingers down, index fingers and ring fingers touching, making a triangle of space. And it says, harmonious life transitions, menopause, reducing stress, supporting all life transitions. No contraindications. Place in front of the pelvis with the palms facing the body and fingers together pointing down.
And obviously, is that Trimurti as in, Trimurti as in the three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva?
It says Trimurti means three deities. You see how she's so clever. And the three male deities and their female consorts who embody the three facets of existence. Brahma and Saraswati for creation, Vishnu and Lakshmi for sustenance, Shiva and Parvati for transformation.
Yeah, so that would, as soon as you said Trimurti, I was like, cool. So for me, that's a class on the cycles of being. That's a class on creation, preservation, destruction, and on and on and on. And I've done classes on that before, and you can have a whole class where there are constantly 3 points that you focus on. Like, again, I'm going to use Trikonasana again, because there's the connection point, the creation point, where your feet connect to the earth. Then you have the sustenance, the preservation that rises all the way up and radiates through your body. And then coming out of it, okay, the pose is now over, but you still have this wonderful feeling that was created in the body while you did that pose. So destruction isn't a bad thing. It just makes way for other things to layer and layer and layer on top.
And you have that right in the breath. The beginning of the breath, the expansion of the breath, the end of the breath.
Yeah.
So there, we just...
There's a 4-week course.
Exactly. And you're like, I'm feeling uninspired. Flick to a mudra, and there's a beautiful oracle card set of mudras. I'll link a few things in here. You could just flick, read, and then let your well of inspiration be fueled from there. And there's your lesson plan with depth and variety for the students as well. So we really, really hope that you feel inspired and invigorated. I feel inspired and invigorated from talking to Lauren. I always do. So if 45 minutes with us has left you feeling inspired and invigorated, I would love you to consider what 4 days with us might be like. We are running this 4-day, we're calling it advanced, but that's a tricky word in and of itself, immersive teacher training retreat in Devon. It is on the summer solstice. So we will start with that. We will start with exploring the true history and meaning of Surya Namaskar. We will learn the Surya Namaskar mantras and put that through a real reverent experience of the sun salutations. And of course, we'll have an outdoor fire pit because we're deep in the Devon countryside, and a summer solstice ceremony. And then from the next day, which is a Thursday, we will go into our trainings together. So we will be covering the subtle body. So we're going to go into the Panchavayus, the Mahabhutas, the great elements, the koshas in a very experiential way, and also how you can then elevate your teaching with that. We have an entire day on unleashing your creativity. You've seen how our creativity bubbles today. And that will also include a guest workshop with watercolor well-being with Iris Hill. So you literally come into painting and breathing your creativity to life. We are covering mudra, meditation, mythology. Lauren and I are going to be teaching the alchemy of touch, hands-on assists. We are covering the history of yoga, what is often not talked about. We're looking at the effects of colonialism, the effects of the British Raj, the effects of Western yoga, and how we can be continuing to do our best to honor the teachings of yoga. We are going into the Bhagavad Gita. We're going into embodied leadership. I think there's more as well. Your voice. We're doing voice and language, unleashing your voice, chanting, kirtan, writing, all held within the most beautiful venue with stunning food in Devon. Lauren, you have been to this venue before. What do you love about this retreat centre in Devon?
I love its connection to the natural world. So it is on the southern tip of Dartmoor in, I just call Devon as a county Devon Heaven because it's beautiful. But it's right on the southern tip of Dartmoor. You've got literally the moorland at the end of this land that the retreat centre's on. So you can walk up from the retreat centre and out onto the moor itself. There's a babbling brook that wanders just down the side of the retreat centre. So early in the morning, you're awoken by bird song and the sound of this beautiful brook beside you. There is 2 beautiful yogashala spaces, one in which you can see the vast expansive grounds and the sky above you, one where you feel almost like you're tucked in a cave. Everything, there's a beautiful quiet library if you need quiet reflection and to flick through a book and, you know, nourish that thirsty brain of yours. The bedrooms are beautiful and comfortable, and just everything the nature.
I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to spend 4 days immersed in yoga with Lauren and with you. We wanted you to be able to do an advanced teacher training, really diving into that depth in an affordable way. So prices start from this from, I think, 850 or 875 pounds, something like that.
850.
850. So prices start from 850 pounds for your advanced teacher training. So come join us, come play. We'll take about 8 to 14 people. I'll leave the information above. And if you want any more, just let us know as well. I am just going to pop back into the Facebook page and see if you have any questions. So Molly's put, please run the course next year too. As I set aside time, so I can set aside time and funds. Yes, Molly's coming to Rishikesh with Lauren and I, so that is taking up a lot of that. Lauren and I will dive into comments. The title of the book, it's just called Mudras for Healing and Transformation, but my lovely, you won't be able to get it. It is out of print, and every tiny existing copy that does hang around goes for like somewhere between £200 to £400. Lauren was gifted this and I stole it from her. Yes, but we'll share some other resources. But yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Lauren and I will answer your questions in the comments, and we really hope to see some of you in Devon. As I said, it's the summer solstice, so it's the 21st of June to the 25th of June. Come join us, and we'll see you next week as well. Bye.